Thank you, Matt. Welcome, everyone. It is 5 p.m. and we'll call the meeting to order for the Municipal Planning Commission, City of Lacombe for April 19th. Everybody's had an opportunity to review the agenda. Motion, please.
I move
Member
to
Kent?
accept the agenda as presented.
Thank you very much. Anything? All those in favor? Thanks. It's unanimous. And you've got before you as well our minutes from March the 1st. Everybody had an opportunity to review those.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Can't say anything. Very good. All those in favor? That's unanimous as well. Very good. That takes us down to the business at hand for today. The development permit applications for the height variance to a front yard fence at 53 Maple Bay. Development Officer Kirk, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Creasy. So the item in front of us today is a height variance to a front yard fence at 53 Maple Bay. Keyboard. Thank you. There we go. All right. So the applicant is requesting a 2-meter, 6.56 foot high front yard fence requiring a variance to the land use bylaw. The property is owned R1, Residential Detached District, which provides an area with detached dwellings and compatible uses. Administration supports the application. So the Commission's decision today is to vary Section 4.31E of the Land Use Bylaw, which states that a development permit is not required for the erection, construction, or maintenance of gates, fences, walls, and other means of enclosure less than or equal to 1 meter in height in front yards. So the bylaw says 1 meter, 3.28 feet. The applicant is proposing 2 meters, 6.56 feet. Therefore, the variance is 1 meter, 50%. So 37 property owners were notified. At the time of writing the report, 8 responses were received, 5 were in support, 3 were in opposition. So we had 4 who just checked support, no extra comments were provided. We had 1 that said privacy is important. We had an opposition with no extra comments provided. Another opposition stated that with the location near a corner, there's safety and visibility concerns for vehicle and pedestrian traffic. So administration is of the opinion that the fence would not create safety or visibility issues because the subject site is set back approximately 16 meters or 52 feet from the corner. The subject site is also set back 2.8 meters or 9 feet from the curb or road. And there's no pedestrian sidewalk in front of the subject site. Another opposition was that it will block the view of the neighborhood. So the neighboring lot to the north is able to construct a 1.83 meter, 6-foot high solid fence in the same proposed location as it's considered to be their rear yard. So the land use bylaw says in rear yards, your fence can be 1.83 meters, but in front yards, it can only be 1 meter. Another opposition is that it will create shade and cause snow to melt late and prevent sun from reaching berry bushes. So administration's response is the land use bylaw allows the applicant to construct the 1 meter fence in the same location without permits, which could cause the same issues. Another opposition is it will impede our ability to see our children at the nearby park. It is not a requirement under the land use bylaw that landowners have visibility to parks and playgrounds from their properties. And another opposition was that we have ongoing legal issues with the applicant regarding prior damages, and a civil lawsuit is a private matter between private property owners and is a separate matter from the fence variance request. Another opposition is that it will potentially cause damage to our retaining wall and impede our ability to maintain it. There will be no compensation for this. You can see in the picture the retaining wall in question. Administration's response is any property owner has the right to erect a compliant fence on or within their property lines. And opposition, a variance was not approved for the fence that was recently erected in the applicant's rear and side yards. So a variance actually was not required for the fence that they installed because it does meet the height requirement of 1.83 meters. So a complaint was received in 2022 about its height. The city confirmed that the fence complies with the height requirements. Certain areas might be a little bit over the 1.83 meters, but that's due to natural changes in grade. And just as a side note, if the variance is approved, the applicant does propose to continue that same white vinyl fencing. over to the portion that they're requesting the variance for. Okay, so for privacy purposes, the applicant is proposing the 2 meters or less in this front yard area here. So you can see in the left picture, it shows a little location. That's the portion that requires the variance. And you can see in the right-hand picture, the garage and driveway are the subject site. The house and the lattice fence is the neighboring property to the north. So where that red line is, that's kind of a pole that's already been erected. That's the property boundary. So from the property boundary back to the house is where the fence would go. And from the property boundary towards the city boulevard is city land. So the fence would not be constructed in that area. So the parts of the land use bylaw are section 4.8.7. So the Municipal Planning Commission may grant a variance from the requirements of the bylaw, subject to the clauses 3.23F and 473, and being satisfied that the variance will not result in a development that does not comply with the requirements of the Municipal Government Act, Subdivision and Development Regulation, the Safety Codes Act, or any applicable statutory plans or outline plans adopted by the municipality. So if you do approve it, then the development would comply with the various legislation. The other section is 4.73. The development authority may approve an application for a development or subdivision, even though the proposed development does not comply with the land use bylaw, if in the opinion of the development authority, the proposed development would not unduly interfere with the amenities of the neighborhood or materially interfere with or affect the use, enjoyment, or value of neighboring parcels of land, and if the proposed development or use of land conforms to the prescribed uses in the land use bylaw. So administration is of the opinion that it would not create unduly interference with the neighborhood because of the distance it's set back from the road and because of the distance from the curb, that city boulevard there, and as well, there's no sidewalks on that side of the road. So the purpose of a variance is to provide discretion to a development authority when the development may not be able to comply with the regulations of a land use bylaw. Variances recognize that not all properties are the same, and some may contain a unique factor resulting in the request for a variance. The unique factor to consider with this application is the orientation of the neighboring lot to the north. So as you can see in the picture there, due to the lot layout, the adjacent site is permitted to erect a 6-foot tall fence in the same location that the land use bylaw restricts the applicant to 3.28 feet. The land use bylaw allows fences to be 1 meter, 3.28 feet in front yards, and 1.83 meters or 6 feet high in side and rear yards. The applicant is requesting the small portion of front yard fencing to contain the overheight fence. The applicant is requesting 2 meters instead of 1.83, just to accommodate for any minor changes in grade, ensure that it's compliant, and eliminate any possible complaints about its height. There is a pre-existing fence made of lattice that is approximately 4 feet tall, erected on or near the shared property line between the neighboring lot to the north and the subject site. If the applicant were to install a 3.28-foot tall fence in accordance with the land use bylaw, it would not achieve the additional privacy that they're pursuing, and it may appear visually displeasing next to the lattice fencing. And then we're on to the recommendations. That concludes the presentation, and I welcome any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Development Officer Kirk, appreciate that. Just before the analysis slide, that one there, for me, the telling tale is the 1.83 meter is allowed on the site immediately north around that corner. So I really don't have any problem with that. I was just curious, once again, why the request for above this, the 1.83 or 6 feet.
Yep, so the applicant is requesting to go just a tad bit higher than what the bylaw says for the rear and side yard fencing, just to accommodate and ensure that there's no complaints based off of its size, and then to make sure that even with the changes in grade, it's still going to be compliant with MPC's decision.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so is the fence existing on the remainder of that shared lot line?
So the applicant's fencing, the white vinyl fencing,
Yes.
it goes up to about the beginning or end of their garage. And then it's just the neighboring lot to the north's lattice fencing.
Right, but in line with the area of question here,
Yes.
that was built to the 1.83 standard.
Yeah.
While I appreciate the reasoning for the variance, that's going to occur regardless. I just find it odd that you would have a continuous run of fencing to be one height and then jump up.
Yeah, and the applicant isn't proposing fully to go up to that. They just want that little bit of wiggle room to ensure that they are compliant. So they are looking for 6 feet and then just that little bit of extra to make sure that they are in compliance with what's being approved.
Thank you. I appreciate the justification for that. Member Ross.
Thank you, Chair Creasy. So if you can go back to that, so the slide that Chairperson Creasy, so the rest of the perimeter is compliant at 1.83.
Correct.
So the arrows are showing that's the only small area where that is considered, not the other side that's in red as well. It's the only area that's in discussion, or the distance is what the arrows are pointing at.
Yeah, so just because that is their front yard, then they need a variance to go more than 3.28 feet right there.
So just for clarity, we're not considering the bottom red line there to the right, though. Okay. Correct. Yep.
Mayor Creasy.
Uh-huh.
Go to the photo. So what we're trying to achieve is what has happened with their existing fence. Go to the existing fence photo. So when you look, so this is their existing fence. It exists in the side and the rear yards of their property. And what you can see is that it's a 6-foot fencing panel, but there's a gap at the bottom of the fence. And so the previous complaint that we received in 2022, which is noted here on this screen, was that the fence was over 6 feet high. Because if you measure it you can see the gap changes in this photo. So if you measure it at one point, it's maybe 6 feet 6, but if you measure it at a different point, it is 6 feet. And so what we're trying to achieve with the front yard in the 6.5 feet is that there would be, if the neighbor complained about the height of the fence in the front yard specifically, then we're covered with any grade changes. Even though that's not necessarily how we measure fencing height, it avoids any conflict on that in the future for a concrete decision at 6.5 feet. No matter where we measured it, if it was under 6.5 feet, that they would be compliant. So then the complaint about the grade couldn't be made in the future. I hope that makes a little bit more sense.
But that is a concrete driveway there, is it not?
No, there's a gravel. There
Gravel,
is
okay.
a gravel patch
Okay.
beside the driveway where they would be able to dig in and put in their fence posts.
Thank you. Member Ross.
Thank you, Chair Creasy. So obviously, in whatever length of your lot is, you're measuring at some point, the ground is at the bottom of your panel, and other areas it's not. So you obviously want a straight fence. So there's going to be some inconsistencies, and that really the original, the grade, like in this area, these houses could be 40 years old already and settling. And really I guess on the bottom and the conclusion, you really just want consistency with the current of the fence, right?
That's correct. And so the fence will be a continuous fence. So it's not like it's going to go and then step up and look like it's an extra height. It's going to be the distance of the bottom of the panel to grade is what will change, not the actual top height of the fence. So it will be a continuous fence to connect into what's already existing.
Anybody care to make any motions? Member Ross?
Where's the recommended motion? Page. I'm sorry. Is there a recommended motion?
Page 11.
Page 11? Okay, I will make the motion to follow the recommended motion as stated on page 11, or do you want me to read it all?
I think we need to.
Okay,
Yep.
sorry, okay. That resolved that the Municipal Planning Commission approved the development permit for a 2.0 meter high front yard fence on the land zoned R1 residential detached district located at 53 Maple Bay, legally described as Lot 2, Block 4, Plan 7823298. Excuse me, with the conditions stated. Is
Thank you.
that sufficient? Or other than test?
So, all the other members consider that. I think we've got the proponents with us here today. Thanks for joining us. Are you aware of the conditions that were attached to the resolution here? Very good. And do you have any questions or concerns with any of those? You're prepared to meet them then? Very good. That was the only question that I had. Anyone else? Then I will call the question. All those in favor? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. And we do have a page showing the development permits issued by the authority before us here, and I think I'm just going to read through them rather than going in depth into each one, if that's okay. At 4537 50th Avenue, there was a demolition and rebuild of the UFA with an 86% variance to the minimum site coverage. Because the LUB had changed since its original construction. I can see why that one was put through. Thank you. And then a home occupation for a quilting and giftware business at 4707 65A Street Crescent was approved with no one opposed in the neighborhood. And then a secondary suite was approved at 25 Cedar Crescent. And the addition to an existing commercial building with a 100% side yard setback variance and a 27%, we're going to call it, rear yard setback variance at 5230 College Avenue. And that was done without any objections received as well. Thank you for that report. Is there any questions or concerns with any of those that anyone would like to discuss? Very good. Our next MPC meeting is slated for May 17th. Just fair warning, I will not be in attendance.
I think
Just-
we
just
should
so-
you mark down for that one already.
Very
We
good.
don't have anything anticipated at this point.
Just so you're able to make quorum, take that in consideration. Thank you. Anybody have anything else?
Mayor Creasy, I just wanted to note that we did hand out the request for information response for the recycled asphalt in the lane behind 5436 50th Avenue. This was also emailed, but it was something that came up at the MPC meeting when we were talking about the Broom Tree Foundation at this location.
Yep.
And so we did look into that for MPC and provided that. So if there was any motions that wanted to be made to direct council, to give council information, we handed it out just for information and brought it forward just in case you wanted to have discussion on it.
Thank you for that. I mean, given the outline of the letter, I don't know that there's really a need for one at this time. It says that it has been done in the past and perhaps it's due for a touch up again. I mean, I appreciate the information. I don't really know that the MPC needs to be involved with this any further, in my opinion. Good. Thank you. Very good. I believe that's all the business that we had then today.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Very good. We are adjourned at 5:19.